All right, finally, episode 6. This one took a little too long. Truth be told, I actually put together an episode between the last one and now, but once I finished it up, I sat down and watched it and realized it was totally trash. I didn't really have very much to share, and I didn't do much recording while I was working, so it turned out to just kind of be a walk around of what I had accomplished, and that felt kind of like a disservice to you guys and to me as well. So I said, you know what? Take an extra week and put something worthwhile together. So now I've got some projects to tackle today. I've gotten a whole bunch done to share with you guys over the last 2 weeks or maybe even longer. I've got new skills to share. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So let's start off episode 6 at the front of the truck. First up is front suspension. The guys up in Bozeman, Montana at Go Fast Campers were actually kind enough to cut these plates for me, which my buddy Nick Foster helped me design. I've got 4 of them in total, and they're going to be the basis for my independent front suspension system. The plates are going to be paired off and then boxed in and welded up at 2 inches square. And then the pair of cross members themselves will actually be mounted to the chassis at right about 12 inches apart. You can see each side has a set of holes, and those are going to locate the heim joints for the upper and lower control arms. I've got them all welded up, and while there's a good bit of finish work to go to really make them look the part, they're just about ready to be mounted. Between them will be my Woodward quick ratio steering rack, and all together, it'll be a huge amount of progress for me to have made since the last episode. You can get an idea of where they're going to go if you look at the one closer to the engine at the moment. One will go there, just in front of it, while the other will straddle underneath it. All of the extra frame in front of those can finally get lopped off, and this truck will start looking like it's supposed to. Alright, so the project that I'm working on right this moment is I'm going to mount this really cool dual fluid cooler that's actually from the guys over at CSF. What makes it really unique is you'll see it's got 2 inputs on one side and 2 outlets on the other. And if you look at the back side, you'll notice that it's actually 2 cores. It's separate, and it's able to cool 2 fluids in one unit. Now, obviously you could accomplish that with just 2 separate coolers, but that's gonna make mounting this really easy. I only need 1 fan, 1 shroud, 1 set of brackets. It's actually a really cool piece, and I was lucky to find it because it fit my needs perfectly. So I called up Ravi at CSF, and I was fortunate they actually put this piece back into production a few days ago. They've been out of production for a few years, so it was my lucky day after finding it and getting my heart set on putting one of these in the truck. The added bonus is dimensionally, it happens to fit to like the 1/4 inch exactly where I need to put it. I had a couple other small units that I wanted to use earlier, but after holding them up to the truck and the few spaces I have available, I realized they weren't gonna fit the look that I wanted, and I just wasn't happy with it. So this is gonna be a perfect setup. It's got a nice big fan on it. It's all self-contained. It's gonna cool engine oil and the transmission. It's perfect for what I need. So let's figure out how to mount it. I think I'm gonna make kind of a tubular bracket setup for it, fit that into the back of the cage underneath the radiator, and let it rip. All right, before I get too far into anything, I've got to do some cleanup because when I was working on those front cross members and trying to smooth them all out, I made what might be the biggest mess I've ever had on this workbench. And as much as I'd like to hide my shame and pretend like it never happened, I figured it'd be more funny to show you guys just how much of a wreck this is. Check it out. Look at this. That's all steel dust, and it's everywhere. This workbench, it's normally like light brown. It's all over everything. It's all over the tools. It's probably all inside of my drawers. Not my pants, thankfully, but I mean, it's just a catastrophe from grinding so much metal. I gotta get out the shop vac and clean this up before I do anything. I think my time lapse might have quit a little bit early, but things are cleaner over here now. And if you want my tip on how to keep the cleanest shop you can, start a YouTube series that you know your mom will watch, and then do your best not to disappoint her with how much of a mess you've got. At least that's what's working for me right now. But anyway, it's back to the oil cooler mount. That unit's not the lightest thing that there is, so I need something kind of robust. I think I'm going to use some of this same tubing that I've used in a lot of other places in the truck. It's 3/4 square. It might be a little bit overkill, but once the cooler is full of fluid and you hit a hard bump or something, might as well just keep it from moving anywhere. So this is the stuff. Here goes. All right, so 15 minutes in, we've got kind of a little frame welded together that happens to match the same size as the cooler. And let me show you what I'm thinking. So what I want to do is mount this guy. So I can turn the camera around. Mount this guy in here like so. And the cooler will mount underneath it with the fan pointing down, so opposite the radiator. As you can see, the radiator is currently removed. So it's gonna mount here. I've got to figure out exactly how I want to accomplish that, but that's where she's gonna go. Alright, so after a little bit more fit and finish work, making some mounts, getting into place, tacking, getting it all level, square, all that jazz, it's in place where it's going to go, and I'm looking forward to the neighbor making a bunch of noise. And I'm looking forward to seeing if this is going to keep everything cool. I'm pretty confident that it will. Again, it seems like a really awesome piece, and it's exactly what I needed for this job. And I'm lucky that it was able to fit right in between these tubes. I mean, it's like it was made for it. It couldn't be better. So now that this is wrapped up, it's on to the next project. All right, so back up here at the front of the truck one more time. I've gotten the front cross member, the first of the two, tacked into place. It's square, it's true, it's straight, it's plumb, all that jazz. So I've got it tacked into place where I want it. I'm not going to fully weld it until I know for sure that all of the front suspension geometry is going to work and doesn't need to be modified. But I'm excited to have it here, and I threw one of the Heim joints loosely into place so you can kind of see what this whole system is supposed to do. If you can imagine a control arm coming out of here, now you start to get it. What else is new up here is I've got the engine mount done. The engine is finally solid mounted. It's not just sitting on wood on its factory mounts anymore. It's where it's supposed to be, it's straight, and I'm pretty happy with the outcome. But what makes it exciting for me isn't just the fact that it's mounted, but it's that these CAD-designed motor mounts actually came out perfect. That is a perfect segue for what else I've been into over the past few weeks since the last episode. I have familiarized myself and started from the ground up working with Fusion 360, and it has led me to creating parts like this, which have then been cut out on a CNC plasma, these by my friends at Go Fast Campers once again, and then can be welded up and put on the truck. And instead of having to make something like this by hand and realistically have it come out pretty poor, now I've got some nice pieces like this. Or for example, my shock tower. I designed these in CAD, had them cut out, and now they're ready to be mounted on the chassis just like that. So here's a little bit more of a look at the computer stuff that I've been working on over the past few weeks. I had a need to design the bell cranks for my rear pushrod suspension. I always rely on a friend of mine to do the work for me, but I finally realized that sooner or later I need to learn at least some of the basics to make this stuff work. I played with Google SketchUp at first, but quickly found out that it wasn't quite suited to do what I want. So I moved over to Fusion 360 after the recommendation from several people, and after another night or two of playing, I wound up with this. It's pretty much a finished model of the bell crank I'm going to use, and sooner or later I'm going to have it sent out, machined, then I'll install it on the truck. Following that, I jumped over and decided to make something a bit more practical that I could make myself. I drew up, using the sheet metal feature, what would become the transmission brace for my WC4. I wanted to keep it really simple in design and simple to make while also being triangulated, strong, and have holes to support the bushings that I would need eventually. The upshot of using this software in sheet metal mode is that I can print out the design, put it on paper, and mock it up. Following that, I can then take the design again, put it on metal, drill and cut it up, and fold it, and have a perfect finished product that matches exactly what I drew on the computer. Of course, I got a little bit bored making really simple things, so then I jumped over to making something a bit more complex. I started with a wheel, which isn't what I'm going to run on the vehicle. I don't think I'm going to make my own, but it was a great way to explore and learn the tools. Stepping things up one more notch, I decided to try building my own exhaust. Now, this isn't something I'm using as a template or really a sample of anything. It was just to learn the software and how to manipulate and use it effectively and to scale, but it was still a great project to learn what I was doing and to see something come to life that could be built. Not to dwell on CAD too long, but the most recent project has been designing front coilover mounts and the motor mounts. Again, these were built using the sheet metal tools. They can be flattened out, drawn up, or in this case, cut out on a plasma table and then folded up and welded to the chassis for a really nice finished piece that took me only a matter of minutes to design and then wind up with on the vehicle, versus spending hours upon hours hand making them. So I guess at this point I'm officially zigzagging back and forth between the back and front of the truck, but I think that's okay. I'm back here because I figured I'd show off some of the other stuff that I got done over the past couple of weeks, most of which has actually been back here. I've mounted a lot of accessories and components, mostly fuel system related. They're going to be used to finish up the truck, obviously. I've got all sorts of bits and pieces, and I guess the first one to talk about would be the battery box, which I was highlighting a moment ago in Fusion 360. So I built this digitally, made a two-dimensional template, printed that out, glued it to some aluminum, and that made bending this up really easy. It took a matter of minutes to put the whole thing together, which was really rewarding. Pretty happy with how it came out. It needs some finishing touches, clearly, but it's in place. It's holding the battery, which is, for the curious, an anti-gravity battery. It weighs I think 3 pounds. It's a lithium-ion battery. It's awesome. I can't recommend them enough. But other new components that are hanging out back here in the back of the truck are going to be the pre and post filters over here. One is a pre-filter, and it's going to filter the fuel as it comes out of the fuel cell and before it enters the pumps and other components. The post filter is going to be what kind of catches anything that might have happened within that system before it heads to the fuel rail and the injectors. Over here is the surge tank. It's a 1.5 liter surge tank, and it's used to have a constant supply of fuel for the fuel pumps just in case you wind up starving the system. You run too many Gs and starve a fuel pickup or something like that. You really don't want your engine to run lean, and that's what's going to protect that. It's got a pair of high pressure pumps inside of it, so we'll be sure to be able to run whatever power figures I wind up conjuring out of this thing. And then back here, I've got a few more pieces hidden. So buried further down into the truck on each side is a pump. On this side is the transmission pump, which will be used to pump fluid into the cooler we mounted earlier. On the other side is a lift pump for the fuel cell, mounted low so that it has no trouble pumping fuel out of the cell and then into the filters and surge system. And last but not least for the week, I've made some progress on the interior. A little bit more, little by little, every day. You'll notice I'm sitting in a seat. I don't know if it's going to stay in here, if it's a final fixture, but it's something to put my butt into for now. And it's going to at least give me something to build the rest of the interior around. Things like the trans tunnel, the door cards, all that kind of stuff. I need to make sure they're going to fit without colliding with everything. These guys are nice, skinny, slim seats that don't take up a lot of room, so it's what I've chosen to go with for now. You'll see I've done some other sheet aluminum work, such as the transmission tunnel, some little door claddings here and there. Slowly but surely it's all coming together. There's still a long way to go, but day by day. Alright, so that's roughly 2 or 3 weeks of work. I'm not even really keeping track at this point. All I know is that right now I've got like 7.5 weeks to go to finish this thing up. But actually I'm feeling pretty good about it. Progress is happening here and there. Clearly I like jumping around back and forth all over this truck. I never really finish one thing or one area. But The fuel system at this point, aside from plumbing and some wiring, it's taken care of. It's set up. Transmission system from the pump to the cooler, all that jazz, ready for plumbing as well. The motor's mounted. The front suspension is now underway, which I think might be the most difficult piece remaining, and it's the one that's got me the most stressed out because it's got to be perfect. But that's happening. It's really coming down to detail work once I get this suspension figured out, the coilovers mounted. I do need to, put together an exhaust and wire up the engine and make everything run. So I guess all in all, pretty long list still to go, but I'm feeling confident. So hopefully there's less time between now and episode 7, but until then, I've got my work cut out for me, so I gotta get back to it.